Hello students, welcome to our very important and useful grammar lesson, which is the present simple passive. To be specific, this will be for the unified track English 102 in Unit 9, Work and Industry. To start with, you may wonder, what is passive tense? There are a lot of grammar tenses that we have taken before and we are still taking. Now, what is passive tense? I will just give you a very short brief about passive tense and then we will go on with the details. Here is an example. Before I explain the passive form, I will go to the original, or let's say the regular form of any basic sentence. For example, I correct exam papers. In this sentence, we have three main parts. The first one is the subject, which is I, correct is the verb, and exam papers are the object. Now, what happens if I transform it into passive form? Exam papers are corrected. The thing that I did is I have cancelled the subject or the doer. Instead of saying I correct, I just say that the exam papers are corrected without specifying who is the doer. Let's go for the lesson objectives. By the end of this lesson, we are expecting to have achieved three main objectives. The first one is to identify the passive voice, to differentiate between the singular and plural as and are forms in passive, and the final one is to use the past participle type of verbs. Now, a very important question. When do we use the passive voice? We use the passive voice in two occasions, or for two reasons. The first one is when we don't want to focus on the agent of the action. What do I mean by the agent of the action? I mean the subject or the doer. It's either me or anyone else. And the second occasion is the agent may be unnecessary or unknown. Maybe some occasions I don't need to know who did this action, so I just say it in passive tense. Here is a very important and easy example. The dentist doesn't use pure gold in teeth. Now, this is a fact. But I can omit the dentist. I can just say pure gold is not used in teeth. In this case, I have cancelled or omitted the dentist. And it doesn't make any difference because what I am concentrating on is the action thing itself, not the doer. We all know that all grammar have certain rules to be followed. Now, this is the rule of passive tense, specifically the present simple passive, because let me mention this, we have a lot of forms for passive tense. There is the continuous, there is the past simple, but this unit requires the present simple, and this is the commonly used in daily life. Now, let's see the active form to start with. It's subject, verb, object, as I have already mentioned. But if we want to transform it or transfer it or change it to passive, in this case, it is starting with the object, then I have to specify if it's is or if it's are, and this depends on the object itself. I am coming to the explanation later. And of course, I finish it with the verb. And the verb has to be in past participle form. It has to be in the third type of verbs. Now, if you can see, we have finished it plus by subject in other color. Why? Because sometimes it may come with the subject, or if I haven't written it or said it, it doesn't change anything. Now, let's go to the examples to clarify that more. Let's start with the active. Now, the students ask me all the time. In this sentence, I have the subject, which is the students. We have the verb, which is ask, and this is how it finishes. Now, if I want to transform it into passive, I will cancel the subject. So, I am asked all the time. There is no doer, there is no subject. Or I can say, I am asked all the time by the students. Now, let's move to the second objective, which is as or are. And I'm sure that you have previously taken this, but we need to emphasize it in order to read it or say it or write it well. I mean the passive tense. Now, let's see. For example, I read a book before I sleep. What is the object? It's a book, which means it is one. It is singular. So, when it comes to passive, I say the book. I start with the object itself. As read. Why did I choose as? Why didn't I say are? Because here I'm concentrating on the book, and the book is singular. Second example is we import seasonal fruits from India. And this is the active, the normal type of sentence. If I want to transfer it into passive, I start with the object, which is the seasonal fruits. And I said fruits, which means it's plural. It's more than one. In this case, I have to use are. Seasonal fruits are imported. And I said imported, and the previous one I said read. Now we will do an exercise just to emphasize the use of is and are. Or let me take an example before that. Layla charges the phone. In this case, if I want to transfer it into passive, I say the phone, I start with the object, is charged. Now, the second case, my dishwasher washes the dishes very well. The object is the dishes, which is plural. So, the dishes are washed very well. And this is how it goes. In order to know which one to use, as or are, I have to concentrate on the object mainly. Now we move to the third important thing, which is the third form of verbs, past participle. And again, I'm sure that you have previously taken this, but again, we have to emphasize the use of the past participle, or let's say the third form of the verbs. These are some verbs that are taken usually. For example, do. The second form, the past simple, is did. And the third form, which is used at the passive, is done. Eat, ate, eaten. Come, came, came. In this case, it doesn't change. Then, find, found, found. It's the same. The last one is pay, paid, paid. You can practice more, and you can use your dictionaries to find infinitives, second form and the third form for the past participle uses. It will help you further in writing. Now, this is a very easy exercise, I believe. I will ask you guys in 2 minutes to transform the below sentences. There are 3 sentences. I want you to transform them into passive voice. So let's start now. You have 2 minutes. Let's do it together. So, time is up. Now we will check the answers together. Let's move to the first sentence. They cook spicy food in India. What do I have to do? As I have previously mentioned, I have to bring the object at the beginning. So, the object here is spicy food, which means it is singular. We didn't say foods, we just said food, which is singular. So, spicy food is cooked. What did I do? I brought the object at the beginning, I added is because it's singular, and cook, I made it cooked, the third form of the verb. Let's move to the second one. I take the graduation photos. The graduation photos is the object here. So I bring it to the beginning, and let's be careful. It's graduation photos, which means it's plural. It's more than one. In this case, I have to use are. Graduation photos are taken. Full stop. The last one, she sells the movie tickets. Tickets is plural. So, the movie tickets are sold because the third form of sell is sold. Now, this is the way that I have to do with all sentences. I will give you a further task. You can do it at any time. This is just to make you stronger and to be better in using the passive form. It will be an exercise 4 at your books, page 73, and that's Language Leader 1. You can refer back to that exercise to help you, which is you're going to have a couple of gaps which you have to fill in. You complete the text with the present simple passive form of the verbs as we have already explained. Now let me ask you a very quick question. Why is passive tense important at this unit? Why am I emphasizing this? Because it is going to help me, look at the picture, help me in writing a process, or it will help me in describing steps in a process, and that will be in the later stages. For the next lesson, for the writing, I have to apply and use the passive tense. What is process? I'll just give you a very quick introduction until we meet the next lesson. This is the way it goes. For example, these are two processes. These are two steps, two stages of accomplishing and achieving a certain process. For example, the seeds are planted, then the roots are cut. Another process is the coffee beans are grind, then the grind beans are saved in bottles. Finally, the bottle is stored at the fridge. And this is the way how I am going to apply the passive tense and writing the process for the next lesson. We come to the end, and I hope this lesson was useful and it added to your values, and we are going to talk further about it the next lesson. Thank you very much. See you very soon.